Ireland is a land that has it all. Incredible scenery with miles of open spaces that are crisscrossed with ancient tracks and remote wild trails. It's a walker's paradise. It's a land of history, folklore and legends that date back thousands of years, the remains of which are still here in the landscape to be seen and experienced by all. From early monastic settlements to remote scholarly islands, from ancient stone circles to pre-Christian communities. It's a land of writers, musicians and poets, from the wild Atlantic Way to wild landscapes, from the coastal villages and towns that resonate with music and song to the quiet, peaceful trails in the mountain and lakeside areas. Ireland has it all.
As a historian, I am interested in Ireland's deep reservoirs of stories, culture and our richly documented past. Many of my days are spent in archives, looking through papers and documents. So when I get to head out and visit locations and historic sites, I jump at the chance. This week I am taking the opportunity to walk either side of the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, making my way through locations that reveal much about our complicated past. My name is Diarmaid Ferriter, and this is my Tracks and Trails. I've spent a few days walking in County Tyrone through the Sperrin's mountain range. Now I've crossed the border into the Republic and to County Monaghan, where I'm exploring the landscapes and countryside that inspired one of Ireland's most famous poets, Patrick Kavanagh. The Monaghan Way is a walking route that traverses just some of Monaghan's rich heritage. The walk is a combination of quiet country roads, cross-country trails, and riverside and lakeshore approaches. It's just over 18 kilometres in total. It can be done in sections for those who prefer shorter stretches. Patrick Kavanagh wrote about this landscape, which is why I'm here. I want to see for myself the landscapes that inspired him. I'm starting at the Patrick Kavanagh Centre in Iniskeen and walking a selection of wild landscapes through fields, disused railway lines and quiet roads to end at Loch Muckno. I'm in Patrick Kavanagh country now. You can see the Patrick Kavanagh Centre there behind me in Iniskeen. And this really is about an opportunity to match the landscape with the poetry of Patrick Kavanagh. And it's a soggy day in Iniskeen, and that's perhaps appropriate enough. I suspect Kavanagh's probably winking down at me through the raindrops. He works the weather, of course, into his poems. The landscape that he wrote about was often sodden. And there's a poem that does spring to mind as a result of this rain. Oh, the rain coming down, the rain coming down, how lovely it falls on the turf clamps home. That was Kavanagh in 1943. So we'll see what the weather throws at us. To preload me with information, guide me in the right direction and set me on my way, I'm meeting Darren McCreesh from the Patrick Kavanagh Centre.
Hi Darren, nice to see you.
How are you, Diarmaid? How are you? Welcome to Iniskeen.
Thanks a lot.
How are things? How's your walk?
I'm about to get into the thick of this walk, Darren, but I'm conscious that Kavanagh himself was a big walker.
Patrick, when he was in his 20s and 30s, famously walked the length and breadth of Ireland, just again to expand his own knowledge about the country and the people that he lived among. And in 1931, after he'd written a couple of successful poems, he decided to meet the poets and writers in Dublin, and he decided to walk the whole way to meet A. Russell, the famous publisher who was living in Rathcar Road. It took him 3 full days.
3 days.
Yeah, and it worked out for him because he met Russell, and from that day on he became a regular visitor to Dublin.
No, he had a real curiosity there, and he was quite the sponge, wasn't he?
He was an absolute sponge. He just had an insatiable appetite for life. Yeah. You know, and that comes across in his poetry. Like it's teems with life, and he himself would say that all of life is contained within a field. You know, on the stem of memory, imaginations blossom.
Is walking that landscape the best way to get a feel for the texture of what he did?
Absolutely. Patrick was a great advocate in kind of staying still, feeling the grass around your body. Like just considering things and going kind of deep and going slow. But that was Patrick, and I suppose back in the 50s and 60s that wasn't fully appreciated. Today we call it mindfulness.
Yeah, well now you've really whetted my appetite. I need to get deep into Patrick Kavanagh country now. So where do I head from here?
So you head up this pathway here, just head over the bridge to the right there, and then you'll find yourself coming under a railway bridge, and just then to the left of that is the beginning of the Monaghan Way, and that'll take your jeep into County Monaghan. It'll be well fit after
I better
that.
get going.
Mind
Lovely
yourself.
to talk to you. Thanks.
Most of County Monaghan lies within the drumlin belt of South Ulster. Kavanagh wrote extensively about life on this type of land, about farming and about the rural community. Being a lover of Kavanagh's writing, to see the places he wrote about has a real appeal for me. The route crisscrosses sections of minor roads and boreens. It feels like the landscape in this part of Ireland hasn't changed much. It's rural and still very community-oriented. The sounds and sights Kavanagh wrote about are still very much alive here and can be seen and even heard.
I can get a very strong feeling for what inspired and moved Kavanagh. You can see it all around us now. The fields, the soil, the trees, the running water, the bird song. A few moments ago we heard the church bells, a reminder that the rhythm of village life carries on. Kavanagh wrote and spoke about how he could be reborn in the fields, that you could go out every day, find wonder, find majesty, find new possibilities. But we don't need to over-romanticise it either. You can't eat the scenery. Kavanagh was very conscious of its limitations, of the poverty that surrounded him. He experienced it very directly himself. He wrote the poem The Great Hunger in 1942. It was a scorching poem, over 759 lines. And it details the plight of the elderly bachelor Patrick Maguire who's living with his mother. And the lines include, Paddy Maguire was faithful to death. He stayed with his mother until she died at the age of 91. She stayed too long, wife and mother in one. And when she died, the knuckle bones were cutting the skin of her son's backside, and he was 65. Oh, he loved his mother above all others. He loved his ploughs, and he loved his cows.
The next two sections of the Monaghan Way run along a disused railway line. It used to be the Great Northern Railway and ran from Dundalk to Castleblaney. The line was decommissioned in 1959 and now forms a substantial stretch of this section of the Monaghan Way.
I'm right beside the border now. I've been thinking a lot about the border the last few days because I've crossed it quite a few times. And you think about the weight of history that's attached to the border on this island. Borders evoke very strong responses in people. For some, they're about safety, about a sense of security. For others, they're about dislocation. They cause great offence. But leaving the contentious politics aside, there's also the practical considerations. There are over 200 crossings when it comes to the border on this island. You often don't know when you're crossing the border. And the border has an impact on the areas around it. Creates sometimes watchfulness, a degree of furtiveness or suspicion. I suppose you could say psychological borders are as significant as physical ones.
I'm meeting Leona Connery, who is the Rural Recreation Officer for this area and is responsible for a lot of the walks here.
Hey, Leona. I feel guilty for disturbing you now. There's such peace here.
Beautiful, isn't it?
It's lovely to meet you.
Oh, yeah, you too.
Thanks for coming out.
Enjoying our walk.
Oh, absolutely. I'm amazed by all the different terrain. You know, it changes so quickly. And so nicely that you could be down in a low mucky field and then you come up to these flush meadows and those
Beautiful
lake
lakelands,
views.
yeah. These are the drumlins that are synonymous with County Monaghan, the County Monaghan landscape. So, yeah.
I'd love to know more about it. Will we walk and have a chat?
Sure.
So how long has the Monaghan Way been in existence?
So it's been in existence for over 20 years, but we've done some upgrades recently to it. I've been assisting Monaghan County Council with the landowners.
The right to roam can be very different in different countries, can't it?
It is indeed. So in Ireland we are reliant on the landowners to give us permission to walk through their land. A lot of the national waymarked ways in Ireland are reliant on permissive access by the landowners. So, you know, we're very grateful to the landowners for that. And a lot of people wouldn't realise that they're walking through people's private land, and the only thing the landowners ask in return is that people respect it, which the majority of walkers do.
Yeah. It's quite a public service then, isn't it?
Absolutely, and a lot of the routes as well are maintained by the landowners, which means the trail management organisation don't have to worry about maintenance. So the landowners do it to make just a better walking experience for the walker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we really are grateful to the landowners for that.
The fact that you get such a mix, you know, of different terrain and different views, I imagine it would appeal to a very wide range of different walkers.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got, you know, we start in Iniskeen where you've got the Patrick Kavanagh connection, and then following the River Fane and the old railway line into the drumlins here and the lakelands.
And we're hugging the border here as well.
Yeah, so across the middle of the lake here, you're into Northern Ireland, you see views of Cross Maglen. So, yeah, very close to the border.
After leaving Leona, I continue. This stretch is the final leg of my route. It's a short stretch via quiet roads to Loch Muckno. It's been a really satisfying few days. Extraordinary solitude along long stretches, and to be able to walk on both sides of the border makes you think differently. The personality of Ulster is something that I was contemplating as I was walking at various stages, and it's a different personality and it changes. I'd like to do this again, and I'm sure it'll prompt all sorts of different questions. And that opportunity to marry history and geography was something that I enjoyed. And as a historian, I spend an awful lot of time buried in the archives, and we've a very richly documented history. But I think it's important every now and again to take the head up and head out and walk the landscape and get a feel for the history that you're writing about and the people and the themes that are relevant to it. And we've had lovely poetry, and we've Kavanagh to thank for that. It's like he provided an emotional soundtrack to this landscape, and you can weave it through your thoughts and get a very strong feel for what inspired his poetry and his creativity. I'll definitely be back here because I think this landscape speaks an enduring story, and it goes on.
If you enjoy the show, follow us on social and tell us your story. We'd love to hear about your tracks and trails, especially if it's influenced you in any way. Has it got you out walking? What were the benefits? Your feedback could inspire our next show.